The year is 1780. Picture this: you're a continental soldier at Charleston, watching in horror as British warships thunder into the harbor. The ground shakes beneath your feet. The largest American army assembled to date is about to be crushed. And this catastrophe? It's just the beginning of what many would call America's darkest year. Today we're diving into Britain's stunning southern strategy that nearly crushed the American Revolution, exploring how one Caribbean hurricane changed the course of history, uncovering a devastating rebellion that shook British rule in Peru, and witnessing Russia's Catherine the Great make a declaration that would reshape European diplomacy forever. The year 1780 finds our world convulsed by warfare. What began as an American colonial rebellion has exploded into a global conflict. Britain faces enemies on every continent whilst revolutionary ideas crackle through the air like electricity before a storm. Let's begin in the swamplands of South Carolina, where Sir Henry Clinton is about to deliver the British Empire its most decisive victory of the entire war. Clinton's strategy is brilliant in its simplicity: forget the rebellious North, conquer the South, rally the Loyalists, then march triumphantly back to New York. On February 11th, Clinton's massive expedition, 90 ships carrying 8,500 troops, appears off Charleston like a vision of imperial might. But here's what makes this siege extraordinary: it's not just about military tactics. It's psychological warfare at its finest. Picture Charleston's defenders, led by Benjamin Lincoln, watching this armada anchor in their harbor. They know they're outnumbered 2-1, but they also know something Clinton doesn't yet: this city is their lifeline to French support. The siege unfolds like a deadly chess match. Clinton doesn't just attack, he methodically strangles the city. His engineers, masters of their craft, dig approach trenches that snake closer each night. The sound of shovels scraping earth becomes Charleston's grim lullaby. But here's the twist that changes everything: Clinton offers generous surrender terms. Not the harsh punishment you'd expect, but paroles, pardons, even the promise that militia could return home unmolested. Why such generosity? Because Clinton understands what many British commanders missed: this isn't just conquest, it's conversion. He needs these Americans to become loyal subjects again, not embittered enemies. On May 12, after 68 days of siege, Charleston falls. The surrender is staggering: 5,400 American prisoners, 4 ships, and enough military supplies to equip an entire army. It's the single largest capture of American forces in the entire war. The news reaches London like a thunderbolt. King George III is reportedly much pleased. Parliament erupts in celebration. Surely, this rebellion is finished. But Clinton has made one crucial miscalculation. Meet Banastre Tarleton, 26 years old, ruthlessly ambitious, and about to earn a nickname that will haunt him forever: Bloody Ban. Just weeks after Charleston's fall, Tarleton leads his British Legion in pursuit of the last organized American force in South Carolina. On May 29th, near a place called Waxhaws, he catches them. What happens next depends entirely on whose account you believe. The Americans claim they raised white flags of surrender, that Tarleton's men butchered defenseless soldiers crying for quarter. The British insist the Americans fired after attempting to surrender, making the ensuing slaughter justified retaliation. Here's what we know for certain: of 350 American soldiers, 113 are killed and 203 wounded. Only 53 escape unharmed. Those numbers tell a grim story: you don't get casualty rates like that in a conventional battle. Tarleton's quarter becomes a rallying cry that echoes through the southern backcountry. But here's the bitter irony: Clinton's strategy of winning hearts and minds dies in that bloody field alongside those continental soldiers. The South doesn't rally to British rule, it erupts in vicious partisan warfare. Francis Marion, Thomas Sumter, Andrew Pickens, these names become legends as they lead brutal guerrilla campaigns that turn the Carolina backcountry into a nightmarish quagmire for British forces. Meanwhile, nature itself is about to reshape this global conflict in ways no general could predict. October brings the most powerful hurricane in recorded Caribbean history. For 6 days, winds exceeding 200 miles per hour tear through the Windward Islands like the wrath of God himself. Picture this devastation: on Barbados, not a single tree remains standing. The hurricane strips bark from stumps and hurls 20-pound cannons through the air like pebbles. Ships aren't just sunk, they're picked up and flung inland, their crews never seen again. But here's what makes this natural disaster historically crucial: it doesn't strike all combatants equally. The French lose 24 warships in a single night. Admiral de Grasse's entire squadron at Martinique is scattered or destroyed. Spanish forces suffer similar catastrophic losses. Britain's Royal Navy, though battered, survives more intact. In 1 week, a hurricane accomplishes what British admirals hadn't managed in years of warfare. It cripples French naval power in the Caribbean. The death toll is almost incomprehensible. Over 22,000 people perish. Entire islands are depopulated. But the strategic implications ripple across oceans. French reinforcements destined for North America now must rebuild the Caribbean fleet instead. Now let's journey to the Andes, where something extraordinary is unfolding, the largest indigenous uprising in colonial American history. José Gabriel Condorcanqui has a remarkable lineage. He's the great-great-great-grandson of the last Inca emperor. But he's also a successful businessman who speaks Spanish, Latin, and Quechua, moves comfortably in colonial society, and understands exactly how the Spanish system exploits his people. On November 4th, he makes a choice that will shake the Spanish Empire to its foundations. Taking the name Túpac Amaru II, after his executed ancestor, he captures and publicly executes the brutal Spanish corregidor Antonio Orioga. This isn't just revenge, it's revolution. Túpac Amaru II's proclamation is remarkable. He calls for the abolition of forced labor, the end of oppressive taxation, and the removal of peninsular Spanish officials. But here's what's revolutionary: he doesn't seek to destroy Spanish rule entirely, but to reform it under indigenous leadership. The response is overwhelming. Within weeks, 60,000 indigenous people rally to his banner. Spanish authorities watch in horror as centuries of colonial control crumble across the Peruvian highlands. The rebellion spreads like wildfire from Cusco through Bolivia, covering an area larger than France. Spanish forces find themselves fighting a war they never imagined, not against European rivals, but against the very people they'd ruled for centuries. But Túpac Amaru II faces an impossible challenge: uniting indigenous peoples, mestizos, and Creoles while fighting a military campaign against professional Spanish forces. The dream of Andean liberation will ultimately fracture on these internal divisions. Finally, let's turn to St. Petersburg, where Catherine the Great is about to deliver a diplomatic masterstroke that will infuriate Britain and reshape international law. Russia's position is unique, officially neutral in this global conflict, but increasingly frustrated by British naval aggression. British warships routinely stop and search neutral vessels, seizing anything that might aid their enemies. To Catherine, this isn't just inconvenient, it's intolerable. On February 28, she issues her declaration of armed neutrality. The principles seem reasonable: neutral ships can trade with belligerents, naval stores aren't contraband, and blockades must be effective to be legal. But here's the brilliant trap: Catherine backs these principles with naval force. Any violation will be met with Russian warships. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Denmark-Norway joins within months. Sweden follows. Eventually, Prussia, Austria, Portugal, and even the Ottoman Empire sign on. Britain suddenly faces not just its declared enemies, but a hostile coalition of neutral powers. The League doesn't directly win battles, but it achieves something more subtle and perhaps more significant: it isolates Britain diplomatically and establishes principles of maritime law that will endure for centuries. As we close this tumultuous year, consider the bitter irony facing the British Empire. Military victories like Charleston should have secured triumph, but they've somehow made ultimate victory more elusive. Nature itself has reshuffled the strategic deck. Indigenous peoples in the Andes are challenging colonial rule just as American colonists did. And Russia's diplomatic genius has turned Britain's naval supremacy into a liability. The year 1780 proves that in warfare, as in life, success often plants the seeds of future failure. Britain's moment of triumph is about to become its greatest test. Next time, we'll witness how these threads weave together in 1781, a year that will see the world turned upside down at a little Virginia town called Yorktown. And so concludes our journey through 1780. Join us next time as we explore what the year 1781 has in store.